Hello and welcome to From Rewatch with Love, a James Bond cinematic rewatch podcast. My name is Graham Stark, and joining me, as always, is Matt Wiggins.
Hello.
And today we are looking at a little bit of a detour. We're looking at 1983's Never Say Never Again, which is not produced by Cubby Broccoli and the team at EON Productions, and in fact premiered practically head-to-head with an actual EON Productions Bond film, which was Octopussy with Roger Moore. If you've been listening along with the podcast, assuming this is not your first episode, you have known for a while that this was coming. We talked extensively in the Thunderball episode about the legal battles between EON Productions and Kevin McClory and Ian Fleming that even led to this whole thing. But to briefly go over it again, before Dr. No, Ian Fleming was looking at getting a James Bond movie made, and he and Kevin McClory and Jack Whittingham wrote a screenplay for Thunderball. That didn't end up being made, so Fleming used elements of the screenplay to write the James Bond novel Thunderball, leading to a legal dispute, McClory claiming that many of the ideas in the book were ideas of his from the original screenplay, and the end result of that was that McClory ended up with the film rights to Thunderball. So when Aeon finally made Thunderball, Kevin McClory was a producer on that movie, and there were a lot of changes from McClory's treatment of the screenplay to what they actually ended up shooting. And if you recall from that episode, it was not our favorite movie. I believe it still is fairly low down on our James Bond lists. It's fascinating seeing this movie and having thrown into sharp contrast the things that Thunderball did correctly.
Yeah.
As a movie, you know?
Yeah.
Because after further disentangling themselves from Kevin McClory and his Thunderball rights, McClory took with him the rights to use Blofeld and Spectre and had been trying for many years to make a Bond movie, because somehow this is how it all worked out, that he could, at any time he wanted to and could get the funding together, could make a movie with a character called James Bond in it. And he thought, well, I should do that. And so eventually he did. And it's so hard to find behind the scenes information on this movie, partly because if you look for behind the scenes information, most of the articles are everything I just told you.
Right.
Which is just about how this even happened. There's very little information about how this movie happened. There's no bonus features for me to have watched because, as you discovered, the Blu-ray is out of print.
Yeah.
And very expensive if you can find one.
What did I find on Amazon? It was like 165 Canadian for a copy of the Blu-ray.
Something like that, yeah.
80 or 90 bucks US because the Blu-ray's out of print.
I had a lot of difficulty finding it on streaming services. I ended up buying it on iTunes, which was still $14, which seems awfully high.
That is outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, made in, 1983 for $36 million, which is adjusted for inflation, $93 million, which was over their original budget. Connery himself was heavily involved in the production of the movie. I don't know why, actually. I think he just thought it'd be a bit of fun. He got involved with the scripting process, not thinking that he would actually be in it.
Right.
And then eventually, they had many people in mind, and then they were like, well, do you want to do it? And he was like, you know what, sure. And so he negotiated like $3 million to be in it and ended up doing a bunch of the production as well. And even commented, what's the quote from one of the interviews? It's like a bloody Mickey Mouse operation. Because Kevin McClory served as an executive producer on this movie, but the actual producer, like the person who oversees the production, was Jack Schwartzman, who had not done that before.
Yeah, that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah. Screenplay by Lorenzo Semple Jr. And I saw that name in the opening titles and I was like, where have I seen that name before? Why do I immediately know the name Lorenzo Semple Jr.? And he's written a whole bunch of stuff. Nothing groundbreaking. Probably the biggest thing that he's written movie-wise would be Flash Gordon.
Okay.
The 1980 Flash Gordon, and he wrote 1976's King Kong. But the reason his name is burned into my brain is because I've seen created by Lorenzo Semple Jr. in the opening titles of every episode of Batman. because he created the Adam West Batman TV series.
Right.
Acted as like a showrunner and script supervisor for that entire series.
Right.
Now, the director is where it gets really weird, because it's directed by Irvin Kershner. And I'm going to be frank, Irvin Kershner has directed around 30 movies that you have never heard of. And The Empire Strikes Back.
And RoboCop 2.
And RoboCop 2.
Which everybody definitely considers the good one.
It's just so weird, because it's always like, I've never looked into what Irvin Kershner has done, but it's always been sort of spoken of when you talk about Star Wars, you know, but like, well, Empire Strikes Back was definitely the best of the original trilogy, and that's because Lucas didn't direct that one, right? That was always the shorthand, right? It was like,
right.
Yeah, you know, like Lucas directed A New Hope, and that was good. And then Empire Strikes Back was some other guy who no one knows who he is, and then Lucas directed Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back was definitely the best one, and you know, so it's must be because of this other director. And I don't know, maybe he is a fine director, but I don't see it on display in this movie. The fact that it's so difficult to find a copy of this to watch is not going to be a problem for most of you, I think.
Where did we find it streaming in the US? Amazon Prime? Was it streaming on Amazon Prime in the US?
Yes, it is. Yeah, but I couldn't because I have the Canadian Prime. But yes, it is.
Yeah. If
you have Amazon Prime Video, it's available there. If you already have Amazon Prime, then, you know, I mean, go for it. But I guess tipping our hand early, I was kind of let down by this movie. And again, I had never seen it, but I did remember catching the very, very, very end of it once.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
With no context, like ages ago. If you'd asked me if Rowan Atkinson was in a James Bond movie, then I would have been like, oh yeah, absolutely. I remember a scene with him and Bond, probably Timothy Dalton. He was probably in one of the Dalton movies. And turns out, no, he's in this one. It's Sean Connery.
Yeah.
If you're curious, of course, the media in the day had a big field day about like Bond versus Bond.
No doubt.
And both films did very well. The thing is, this movie was a commercial success. $160 million at the box office in 1983. 416 million today. It was not a failure, and in fact it was received very well at the time. People were like, hey, Sean Connery's never lost it. And yeah, I think he's lost a little bit of it, but you know, people are like, all right, Sean Connery's back, and you know, the master returns, hooray, it's Bond versus Bond. Octopussy in the end performed better at the box office. I think coming out prior to this one might have helped, maybe, I don't know.
Probably.
It ultimately doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a head-to-head competition. I think it would have been to their benefit to have had it not be a head-to-head competition.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of this in a modern, well, more modern context. It's 1983, right? But like franchise movies are all the rage now. Can you imagine Marvel puts out a Captain America movie and then Sony Pictures in the same year, Marvel does a Captain America movie starring like Sam Wilson as the new Captain America, and then Sony runs a Captain America movie having brought back Chris Evans, but that Captain America is not in the MCU.
Yeah, it'd be very strange. And I mean, I think audiences today care a lot more about the interconnectivity, continuity stuff. Like I think at this point, I doubt people cared, frankly.
Yeah, it just like, it's a lot of Bond in one year.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit bad almost for Roger Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Because it does feel like there would be a sort of delegitimization of his Bond by this. Well, he's the one that's doing like the official Bond movies, but Connery's the real Bond.
And that's definitely the angle they were going for. The producers of this movie, they were like, you know,
right, the
real James Bond returns. And it's like, meanwhile, somewhere off in the woods, George Lazenby sheds a single tear, you know. But ultimately, it was not received that poorly at the time, and only sort of through a more modern film critique eye has it maybe not fared as well.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's start talking about it. There is no pre-title sequence. We launch right in. The screen has, it looks like scan lines, but as they increase in size, you see that it says 007.
Which is a cute little effect.
Yeah, it is cool. And then we get a very traditional opening title sequence with just the cast and crew names being brought up over the footage we're about to see for the next couple minutes. I think this was a big mistake. Like if you're making, we're at 0 seconds in the movie and I'm like, don't like it. If you're making this unabashed, we're doing a James Bond movie, you've got decades of examples of how to do that. And obviously you want to put your own spin on it, but like you should really be able to be like, let's just do that but better, or even just do that. Like despite the budget, it makes the film feel cheap in comparison.
It does. It really does. It's fascinating too, because they fully do a functional pre-title sequence, right? Like the title song is running over top of what would in any other Bond movie be the pre-title sequence.
Yeah.
Opening it on it is an establishing shot, but it's just like a helicopter shot of trees as we move to where the action is happening. Is like, you're right. It feels cheap. It feels like a cheap 80s action movie that, you found in the bargain bin at Target.
Mm-hmm. And the music, I don't know where this falls on the bangers, belters, and ballads. This is I asked Kathleen, I played a bit for her, and I was like, what genre is this? And she sort of scrunched up her face and was like, I guess adult contemporary?
More or less. So this song is, to me, the quintessential, it is practically an archetype of the completely meaningless artistic void of an 80s opening title song.
Yeah, it's got no teeth.
It has no teeth whatsoever. Like, it's a little catchy, but it's like, I don't know, I could listen to the instrumental version of this as elevator music. Like, it's nothing. It's actually, it's funny. I remember this like anecdote from around this, or a little after this, I guess, but around about the time that The Simpsons came on in 1989. I don't know, this may be sort of apocryphal. I'm not going to source it. I just remember hearing this quote from Danny Elfman being like, the reason The Simpsons song is the way it is because like every show had this completely toothless 80s sitcom opening that, like, I say toothless 80s sitcom opening and immediately 20 of them spring to mind and you cannot remember which show belongs to which theme song.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do something that was completely out of left field relative to the prevailing standard on the air at the time, to sort of indicate that they were aiming to go sort of completely out of left field with the show as well. So he tried to make something that was catchy, but like nothing that was on the air at the time to set it apart. This isn't that.
No.
This is very much the thing that Danny Elfman at the time was trying to like break away from. This song could apply to literally any other movie from this era and it would suit just as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Music by Michel Legrand, who did the music for the movie, and the score of this movie is not looked upon well. Lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman. These are all people who have been nominated for Academy Awards for their work, but not for this.
Yeah.
And performed by Lanny Hall, who is the wife of Herb Alpert, him of the Tijuana Brass.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Strange connection, once again.
That is a strange connection.
To Casino Royale 1969. But under this music, we see Connery as Bond sneaking around this sort of, it looks vaguely South American, let's say Cuban. They're definitely going for that kind of look with the dress that people are wearing, the like sort of beards and hats of, of sort of like, they're trying to look for sort of like Cuban revolutionaries is the kind of imagery they're trying to invoke here, which is funny because I watched the first 15 minutes of Octopussy by accident, forgetting we'd said that we were going to do Never Say Never Again. And that's also how Octopussy starts.
Oh, really?
Not sneaking around the jungle, but with quasi-Cuban revolutionary looking people. Anyway.
I see.
So Bond is sneaking around being a lot more brutal than we're used to seeing Connery's Bond be, like garroting people, using grenades. Like he kills a bunch, but he's also like, he's got like a blowgun, he's got a zip line, he's using every trick in the book. Eventually kills enough of them that he can get into the room where we are led to believe through the way that it's shot the girl that he's there to rescue can be rescued after a bit of a scuffle between him and the last guy standing. By the way, all the fight scenes in this movie were choreographed by Steven Seagal.
Really?
Yeah.
They're like, so in fairness to Mr. Seagal, there are a few good fight scenes in this movie.
There are.
I wouldn't even call the problem with this scene the fight scene. The actual fight choreography is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a Steven Seagal movie, but it's still pretty sweet.
The end result of it is that after finally defeating the last guy there, Bond cuts the ropes that are restraining this woman, and she pulls out a knife and stabs him in the side of the rib cage. And rather than look pained like he's dying, he looks like he's about to swear and cuts himself off. He just sort of goes and looks really upset. And I agree with you completely. Having this as a pre-title sequence and then having him get stabbed and look like he's dying and then cutting to opening titles would have been way better way to start this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be doing the Bond dies in the opening again, but who cares? That's fun.
Yeah. So it then immediately cuts to VHS video footage of what Bond was just doing. And it's apparent that he was doing a training exercise basically to be allowed back into the field. It's being watched by Bond and M, played by Edward Fox, who has been in a whole bunch of stuff. Amusingly played Agent 9 in 2018's Johnny English Strikes Again. I don't get like supremely negative about a lot of stuff that we talk about in these movies. I hate his portrayal of M.
Oh yeah.
It's so bad. He's just angry and distrustful and talks to Bond like Bond is a child, but not in like an endearing way, like when Q would get annoyed with Roger Moore for like breaking his toys. Like he shows no trust or respect for Bond and just gets angry and doesn't listen to or believe him. This is the head of MI6 and he's just like, well, that sounds stupid. Whatever. Go away.
Yeah.
Bond will be like, but what about this thing, for example? And he's like, no, you're an idiot. Stop that. Leave. And it's just like, wow. How are you in charge of this division of government?
It warrants noting that in this movie, he is playing the subsequent M from the M that we know. There are a few lines to sort of give it away. He talks in this scene, in fact, he talks about how he's basically like decommissioned the 00 program because unlike his illustrious predecessor, he believes in other methods to get the job done. He has been putting Bond through this training program because he believes it's his responsibility to keep his agents up to snuff and able to handle the field. But Bond complains that he's like, well, you've got me teaching courses. Of course I died. It's not the same as being in the field. There's no edge on it. And if all I'm going to be do is working at the academy, then you should expect me to sort of get, rusty, basically. But you're 100% right. Like, he's just such a dick.
Yeah, this isn't even the scene that I think he's the worst in. It's like M was always kind of tired of Bond's shenanigans in the EON Productions. But as we commented on, there was always that respect of like, but this guy's actually really good at his job. Like Bond would say something and, M would be like, oh, come on, 007, whatever, stop that. And he's like, well, what about this? And then M would go, oh, holy crap, he's onto something.
Right. Yeah.
This guy's just like, I don't want to talk to you or look at you. I hate you. And so they have this back and forth about like, you died in the training thing. He's like, well, I was doing training drills for a week and I only died once. And M says, you died twice. Bond says, if I may offer a correction, the landmine didn't kill me. It merely blew my legs off.
Which is something of a distinction without a difference in this context, but it does make for a good quip.
Yeah. Speaking of the quips, Connery he's totally fine in this movie. Like he's older, yes. He's got like gray through his hair. It's certainly been 12 years since he's been in Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah.
He's in good shape physically and he's fine. Honestly, I have no real complaints with Connery and Bond in this movie. My problems are largely with other things, though I will note he's talking with way more of an accent than he used to.
Well, that's true. We've already talked about one big mistake this movie made in the first 5 minutes. I want to credit the movie now with a good decision. The good decision being reactivating an aging agent who has been working in training for a while, because that makes Connery way more believable.
Yes.
In the context of this film. And so setting it as like, this is Connery's one last ride as Bond within the narrative of the film, it's Bond's last mission, I think serves Connery's position in the role very well.
I agree.
And much more, like, it makes him feel much more at home in this role than he did in Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, I totally agree. Having that as a narrative thing of like training other agents and now we're putting you back in the field for this mission does make that sort of thing make more sense. Related to that, though, I detest how often they make some kind of cute fourth wall quip about it. Because they do one in this scene, and I was like, aha, gotcha, cool. You know, that's your this never happened to the other guy. Fair on you. And then they keep doing it. Like, there are just so many little side mentions of like, nice to have you back. You know, you were always the best agent. Great, you're back in it again. You know, like referencing a car, like, oh, they don't make them like this anymore. It's just like constantly through the whole movie.
So what ends up happening here is that after the discussion of Bond dying or not dying, as the case may be, M decides that Bond is not sufficiently up to snuff. He needs a strict regimen of diet and exercise, and so he is ordered off to Shrublands therapeutic facility.
Yeah, exactly. Just like in Thunderball, he's going to Shrublands to recuperate. And on his way out, he says goodbye to Moneypenny, played by Pamela Salem, who is absolutely randy for him. This is my other complaint about this movie, is there are so many women in this movie to the point that on more than one occasion, I got them confused.
Yeah.
And every single one of them is incapacitated by how randy they are for Bond.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that we're talking about James Bond. I understand that. It is almost to the point of parody that every single one of them is just like, doop-a-doo, just doing my normal job. Oh, but what?
Yeah.
It's like, settle down.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. It is 100% correct.
Bond arrives in his car that they do not make them like anymore. It's a Bentley, I think, at Shrublands. They make some quips about how he's still in good shape. This is like, again, more of these jokes about how he's still got it in him. And the doctor makes a joke about how we'll give you a colonic. That'll perk you up. And then the nurse asks him to fill up a jar for a urine test. And she's standing on the other side of the room, and he makes some sort of quip about like, what, from over here?
I honestly like that quip because she just sort of points the cup at him.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like, yeah, I don't know why she doesn't walk towards him and hand it to him. She just stands on the other side of the room and goes, I need you to fill this up, and like tips it towards him.
Yeah.
I think the joke is meant to be like he pees into it from there, but her reaction to it is as if he was saying like, I'll just unfurl my enormous dong across the room. I don't know. Her reaction is very like flirty. It's odd, but not as odd as the Skechers commercial we go to, because the next scene is we just follow people watching only their feet. Yeah, we follow a woman walking into a place, and then a man lets her into another place. It's a bank, and then we eventually see who this is. The character is Fatima Blush, who was changed to Fiona Volpe in Thunderball, the red-haired assassin, Spectre number 11. That is who this is as well. She is also an assassin, Spectre number 11. She doesn't have red hair. She wears big furs and high heels and is incredibly extra in every single scene that she's in.
She's kind of great, actually, in terms of just raw entertainment value of the movie, because, yeah, she is giving 120% all the way through this movie. Yeah, I don't think she's in the same movie as anybody else. Like, she's... And I don't necessarily mean this as a criticism, because she is entertaining, but it's like she had made a decision about what this movie is, and certainly is supported by the cinematography of like following her feet around, and then later there's a bit of her like prancing down an enormous staircase, and it's like, what movie do you think you are in? Oh, yeah. I mean, in this very scene. So this is a similar scene from, I think, Thunderball as well, where it's Largo, in the case of Thunderball, goes into the charity for displaced peoples. Mm-hmm. and then like goes down the stairs and into the secret chamber, and it turns out to be the like Spectre meeting room.
Yeah.
This is precisely the same thing happens here. She goes into the bank, she goes up to a wall with the banker, they both put their keys in deposit boxes, turn them, and the wall opens up, revealing a staircase that she walks down into the Spectre lair. But you are right, she is in a completely different movie from everyone else, because here she is in like leather and high heels and giant furs and a jaunty cap, and everyone else in the room is in suits and ties.
Yeah. You know who isn't in the room is Largo. And this is one of those things where it's like, for all the problems we had with Thunderball, there are things that we did like in Thunderball, and one of them was Thunderball's equivalent of this scene. Largo goes in, we hear from Spectre number 1, we don't see his face at that time, and then he unveils their plan. And this movie doesn't establish Largo for a while. They introduced Blofeld in this scene. Blofeld played by Max von Sydow with a full head of hair and a beard and the cat and everything. And he's honestly kind of great, even though he is inconsequential to this movie.
Yeah.
Fatima Blush comes in and sits down. A guy sort of looks at her sidelong, and it's like, oh, they're going to do the thing where he talks about how someone's betrayed them and then that guy gets killed. And that doesn't happen.
Nope.
Maybe that was recorded. According to Kim Basinger's in this movie. According to Kim Basinger, they filmed like 3 movies worth of footage.
That doesn't surprise me.
It definitely feels like there's some stuff missing.
One of the things that's missing that we'll get to is, like, you're right, they don't establish Largo for a long time. I don't know, like, I thought I was watching this movie pretty good. I literally do not remember why Bond catches on to Largo as being like the person to pay attention to at all.
Yeah, same.
Okay, good. It wasn't just me, because there will come a point a few scenes from now where he's like, Largo's the guy we need to chase after. And I could not tell you why in recollection at the moment.
Maybe we'll be able to remind ourselves while we're doing this podcast.
You know what? I honestly think they just don't.
That's reasonable. Blofeld talks, he addresses the people there, and then there's a video call from Largo. In this movie, Maximilian Largo, not Emil Largo, Maximilian Largo, played by Klaus Maria Brandauer, a Hungarian, I believe, actor who was in the main role in a movie called Mephisto, which won an Academy Award the year prior. We'll talk more about him. But anyway, he just sort of like radios in and is like, yep, the plan's going ahead. But like, there's nothing, because he's a video call and the scene focuses so much on Fatima and Blofeld, there's no gravitas from him. It's just like this guy that Blofeld's radioing into for an update. He's just like some dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, he does explain that it's like, we have the Air Force guy working for us under threat of hurting his sister.
I mean, it's basically the same situation in Thunderball. Domino is his sister. In this case, he's an American Air Force pilot, as opposed to, like, there are a few distinctions here from Thunderball that we'll get to as the scenes play out. But basically is like, yeah, I have ingratiated myself to Domino. We have introduced the Air Force pilot to heroin.
Right, yes. Rather than replace him with a body double, like in Thunderball, they've got him hooked on smack and given him they did some sort of surgery to his eye.
Yeah, they gave him a false cornea.
Yeah.
To mimic the cornea of the President of the United States.
Oh, right.
So that when an eye print scan is required to authorize the arming of nuclear warheads, he will be able to take the place of the president to authorize the arming of nuclear warheads.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that surgery happened at Shrublands, or at least he's recovering at Shrublands. So it's the same kind of similar thing with the guy walking around with the bandages in Thunderball. Back at Shrublands, we see him being wheeled through in a wheelchair, and Bond tries flirting with a nurse. She's like, well, let's go take care of that. And then it cuts to what looks like a weird shot of them having sex at a strange angle, but she's actually just stretching his back because she's doing like chiropractic stuff. I will say that unlike Thunderball, Bond does not grotesquely force himself upon this nurse or anyone in this movie.
It's true. To his credit.
Yeah, that's a positive.
I actually think this scene is kind of cute. I like the fake out It's not a very good fake out, but I like the fake out anyhow.
Yeah.
I also like how completely put off Bond looks every time a bone like cracks. Sean Connery is doing good work in this scene.
We get a little insert shot of Pitachi, the pilot, smoking, and then we cut to Connery with Bond sort of doing what looks like spy stuff inside his suitcase, because then he hides it very quickly when there's a knock at the door. And it's the nurse who has come around and decided that she does actually want to spend the evening with Bond, even though she really shouldn't and could get in trouble, but she's brought him food because he's being given horrible get health food from
parsley tea.
Yeah, from the doctor. She brings him slightly better but still terrible sounding food, and then he flips up his suitcase and shows that he's got like vodka and foie gras and truffles and caviar. Yeah. She and Bond enjoy their evening, and Fatima Blush, now disguised as a nurse, makes contact with Pitachi. They end up getting into a fight, basically, because she reminds him that if he doesn't do their bidding, he not only won't get his heroin, but they will hurt his sister in some way. So they start having a fight, which Pitachi does a terrible job at. Like, Fatima Blush legitimately kicks the crap out of him. And Bond hears this happening and looks out the window and sees this happening. They're not being very subtle about it. So he gets dressed and goes over to investigate and sneaks up to the window and sees her investigating this corneal implant. And they have this machine that he's going to test that the cornea works. He's like reciting numbers.
He has 8 seconds. We don't know this yet. Well, like it'll sort of pay off eventually, but he's basically, she tells him he has to succeed in this test in 8 seconds. And so he has to like enter some numbers and have his cornea validated in 8 seconds, or he fails the test.
Yeah.
If you do it, baby gets his candy. Waves the hypodermic in front of him.
Bond, in trying to get a better view, inadvertently flips the blinds up. Pitachi freaks out, calls Blush back in. He's like, there was a man outside. So she gets her spy gadget, which is just a night vision scope, and looks around and sees that it's Bond hiding in the shadows and staring at the window, waiting for them to stop looking for him, I guess. And she recognizes who it is immediately. She's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. The next day, Bond is snooping around Pitachi's room, where it's been completely cleaned out. He's been moved. They've left. He finds Pitachi's cigarettes and matchbook that he's hidden in the mattress, and there's a logo of some flags on the matchbook. No idea what that could mean yet. Then, you remember the scene where Bond has sex with a table?
I do.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in this one, which is kind of a shame. He's doing like, not bench, he's doing like an opposite of a bench press. He's doing like pull downs.
It's weird. It clearly is. It's like a Smith machine for bench pressing, because he clearly is like, he's actually sort of, it looks like he's pushing in both directions, pushing up and then pulling down, because it's counterweighted, which is why it looks like a pull down. But like, he's about to be attacked here, and as soon as the counterweight goes, it immediately slams down on his neck and pins him to the machine. So there's got to be downward weight as well.
Yeah. By the way, the guy that comes in to attack him, this movie's version of Lippy.
Right.
Who is not Count Lippy. He's just Lippy, the enormous, indestructible man. Yeah, as you say, that he pushes down on Bond and tries to, like strangle him or whatever, and Bond eventually gets out, and then they have this ridiculous fight that nobody seems to hear.
This is one of those fights that I think is actually kind of great. This is like a good Bond fight, in my opinion, because it's the classic indestructible bad guy. Mm-hmm. There's a unconventional weapon used in it, which I think is cool, and there's some good comedy in it. I mean, it's easy comedy, but it's good comedy. Lippe tries to kill him with the Smith machine. Bond tries to hit him with an exercise device of some description. I can't see what it is. And he just tears it apart in front of him. That's great. Bond wings a dumbbell at him and it just bounces off his chest without any reaction at all. Mm-hmm. I do, obviously, as has come up many times now, have a soft spot for Bond absolutely getting trash canned in a fight. That happens constantly.
Yep.
Bond is so completely out of his depth in this fight. It's hilarious. But they fight their way out of the gym. They fight their way down a hallway. In the hallway, there's like a bunch of patients are like watching a sports game of some description on TV. They manage to like fight down the hallway behind them while they're all excited and cheering for something, so they don't hear them fighting past them. Bond manages to mash Lippe's nose in a door. Eventually, they get to a kitchen. Bond gets gets thrown all around the kitchen. It's in the kitchen where Lippe pulls out his weapon. Bond picks up a knife to sort of defend himself, and Lippe pulls out his belt buckle, which has this like spring, 2.5 foot long, it's a spring, basically, like a condensed one. So it's wiggly. Bond like brandishes the knife at him, and he just wings this thing through the air, and it just breaks the top of the knife off. Bond grabs like a serving platter to defend himself, and he just cracks the thing right in half. It's just a fun fight scene. Like, all sorts of weird stuff happens in this scene.
It honestly is. My only complaint about it is, like, for example, the chef just pieces out, and then they go into a woman's room, and Bond flings her blankets all over Lippe, and she remains completely silent and doesn't move or do anything. And it's like nobody notices or reacts to this path of destruction.
And they really do tear a path of destruction. They come out of the kitchen into a hallway, and Bond like tips a bookcase full of china and plateware over top of him, and then pushes a laundry cart at him. They make their way down the hall. You're right. They bust through a room where a woman's asleep, and he grabs all the blankets and wraps them up in them, and she just sort of like curls into a ball. They make their way into a laboratory. Bond gets put through like all manner of racks of beakers and vials, and the fight finally comes to an end when Bond grabs a beaker off of one of the tables and throws it in Lippe's face, which causes Lippe to react as if he's been like horribly burned, and goes, "Nyah!" and walks back against another case of vials and what have you at the back of the room, hits it, stops reacting, and then falls over forward. And we see that when he smashed into the thing and behind him, it impaled him on a whole bunch of beakers and like broken glass. And so he falls dead, and Bond looks at the beaker that he tossed in his face, trying to figure out what he threw in this guy's face that saved him. And it is his own urine sample.
Da 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 da. I prefer how they play it, because he throws it in the guy's face and he goes like, ugh, because he just had stuff thrown in his eyes, and there's ammonia and pee, then backs into the shelf of glassware and then looks like he's died, basically. And then Bond is like, what did I throw in his face? And then looks at it's the urine, and he's like, what's wrong with my pee? And then looks up at him, he falls over, and it's like, oh, he's actually got impaled on stuff. Okay, that makes more sense. And then we cut to Bond being chewed out by M, who's like, how dare you? I'm gonna have to pay them all this money and apologize for you destroying the place. And Bond's like, a man tried to kill me, and M just goes like, probably someone whose wife you slept with. Just completely like, Bond's like, do we not want to follow up on why that might be? And no, the end result of that scene is no. We just cut to the Air Force base where stuff's about to go down. So currently, Bond is not on a case. He just had someone try to kill him. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't talk about Patachi or any of that. At the Air Force base, again, like Thunderball, they're about to do this special test. In Thunderball, they're moving the warheads on that plane that carries warheads. In this case, they're doing a test of these like self-guided, amazing...
Yeah, they're like cruise missiles.
Yeah, they're cruise missiles. Patachi takes his little briefcase with the eye device and like hacks into the circuit board. It's very like, don't worry about it, and takes off his contact lens and reveals his horrible cornea eye, and uses the president's cornea to replace the dummy warheads that they will be testing with live nuclear warheads, because they're testing the systems by which they are launched and fly. Mm-hmm. So he's sending fresh ones out there, and he's like communicating with, it sounds like a person at a call center who's like, hello, you have to make sure you have the president's eye around. Okie dokie, thank you, have a nice day. It's a little weird. It could have served to stand more robotic, I think.
Yes, it is a very polite robot.
Yeah. So they load the things up, and Patachi immediately gets in his car and leaves the Air Force base because he knows that something's going to go down.
Patachi makes his way off the base. We cut to the plane carrying the missiles initiating the test as it fires its 2 cruise missiles. And then we cut back to Patachi again, making his escape. As he's driving along through the countryside, Fatima pulls up next to him in a car, and she's cheering, Jack, bravo! And she cheers him on, which draws his attention. He rapidly looks over because she's just come up behind him and he doesn't know who it is. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you. And then she gestures, keep your eyes on the road. So he snaps his head forward to keep his eyes on the road. And you may want to pull up our favorite website, Graham.
Oh, no. Snakes on film?
So we talk about ridiculous ways to murder somebody. This is Fatima starting at 100 and going up from there. While Jack's eyes are on the road, she reaches over to the passenger seat where she has a snake and she wings it into his car. This causes Jack to panic.
This causes Graham to burst out laughing.
This causes Jack to panic. So he oversteers the car, steers it off the road. Steering it off the road causes the car to jump and flip in midair as it crashes into the side of a building, landing upside down. Fatima pulls up next to the crashed car, which is through a building, walks over, sees that Jack is severely injured, picks up her snake, which is still alive. Jack, not so much, but Snake's still good. Gives it a smooch, saying like, oh, my baby. Very sorry. Places a brick of C4 with a remote detonator on it in the car, walks back to her car, and blows up Jack's car in a huge fireball.
Pick one of those three ways. You don't need to use a poisonous snake, more on that in a second, make him crash and flip his car and blow it up.
I mean, she gets the job done.
Yeah.
We can be fairly certain that Jack Patachi is no more.
Yeah. Anyway, according to CaliforniaHerps.com, it is a boa constrictor, so not poisonous.
Alas, he had nothing to fear except a good hug.
Mm-hmm.
So then we cut back to the cruise missiles cruising over the British countryside. I am a little dubious of this test myself, but sure, why not? We get a great shot of like two little kids playing on the beach as two cruise missiles fly over their head, which is a little incongruous.
It's very strange. Like some of the shots are cool. Like they've got obviously models of these missiles overlaid on rapid helicopter shot. And, you know, some of it looks kind of cool and some of it's like, okay, it's a little odd. And then aboard this boat, we see some people with a radar scanner and they're like, oh, yep, they're getting closer. It's all going ahead as planned. They start freaking out back at the Air Force Base because now the missiles are losing altitude. Then this really bugs me. It cuts from shots the missiles flying through the air and then the radar technician scientist guy going, yep, we've got a hold of them. And he turns on a display and it shows them descending. And then we see two little inflatable Zodiacs leaving the bigger boat, we assume to go and retrieve the missiles, and then we just hard cut to one of the missiles landing on the seafloor. There's no shot of them crashing into the water, and it's jarring that there isn't one. I found it jarring.
You're right.
I was waiting for like the moment of impact.
Yeah.
And it's just like, they're underwater now.
Yeah. The closest we get to that like sort of payoff is the Air Force watching them and seeing them like descend, and then cut to black.
Yeah. There's this weird cut of the scientist who helped do this, turning off his radar and looking remorseful for a moment. And if you remember in Thunderball, that character ends up having a change of heart after Largo threatens to torture Domino, breaks her out, and he and Bond and Domino get away from the boat at the end of the movie.
Right.
In this movie, there is no payoff.
Yeah. He just looks sort of remorseful.
And then nothing happens with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Largo in a helicopter who's like, hey, how'd it go? And they're like, it went fine. And he's like, oh, awesome, cool, I'll tell Blofeld. And then he tells Blofeld, like there's a metal skull that like tilts back and a camera lens comes out of its mouth. And he tells Blofeld that it's all good. And Blofeld's like, great, good job. And then we see Blofeld addressing, I don't know, a lecture class? Like, where is this filmed? This looks like a university.
Yeah, it's in context, like narratively, this is the heads of NATO. But it does look like a university lecture hall where they've set up a screen.
Yeah.
And, you know, put some flags around the room. Maybe NATO looks like that. I don't know. But it is not a very, like, extravagant set.
No, it really isn't. Smartly, Blofeld and Spectre are demanding 25% of all the nation's annual GDP to not detonate these two nuclear missiles at unnamed targets somewhere on Earth. And I say smartly because then you don't have to worry about the movie getting old. Because percentages cover for inflation. You remember in the first Austin Powers movie, Dr. Evil was like demanding $1 million and everybody was like, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then he had to be like, oh, whoops, and like reframe it. And so this, 25% of the gross national product of all the NATO countries. That's a lot of money then, and it's a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Which is why they all freak out and get angry at England for losing these missiles.
Yeah. M is there, as is I think it's the British Foreign Secretary. Mm-hmm. And they basically are like, all right, we'll get someone on the job. That's basically it. It's like, we are facing a global nightmare, but we'll get someone on the job. We will reactivate the double O's and find these two bombs.
And then we cut to Bond reviewing pictures of Largo. And I just realized the answer, it's a little tenuous, but the answer to your question from earlier is Largo's boat has a flag that's the same design as were on Patachi's matchbook.
Okay, you're right. It is tenuous. Because I don't think we learned that in this scene.
No, we learn it in the next scene. So we see Bond holding the matchbook, looking at... Oh, no, there is actually a shot of like a bag on the deck of that fishing boat earlier. And then after the scene of Bond looking at the thing, and I think Moneypenny being like, why are you here? Stop working so late. Come with me. And him just sort of being like, okay, whatever, and going with her. Then we cut to a shot of Largo's yacht with that symbol on the helipad.
Right. And I remember seeing the symbol on the helipad. And so, like, I knew there was that connection. And you're right, he does hold up the matchbook in this scene. It's the fact that if they had reversed the order of those scenes so that we knew that Largo was associated with that logo in any kind of direct way.
Yeah, rather than show the yacht and the helipad and then this not B-roll, but this shot of Largo landing his helicopter. Shot of Largo in the helicopter, then the POV shot that we have in the movie of the helicopter landing on the helipad with that symbol, then cut to close-up of Bond holding the matchbook with the same symbol and looking at
pictures of Largo.
Pictures of Largo.
Hell, looking up a picture of this yacht and seeing who it's registered to.
Yes, exactly. This is all how to edit this better with existing footage that they have, too.
Yeah.
So Largo gets on board his boat, and he has a big staff of folks, and he asks for updates on, various stocks and things, and just sort of says hi. And then we cut back to Bond talking to M and saying that he wants to look into this boat. So here's more of why I dislike M in this movie. In this scene,
okay,
Bond asks M, what's the American's story for what happened here? And M says, well, this can't happen without the president's approval. And even then there are safeguards. They need the president's right eye. And Bond, who saw Padachi at Shrublands doing stuff with his eye, Bond said, well, could they do it with a false eye? And M is like, come on, Bond, you're being an idiot. What a stupid idea. Let's think of something logical. And then we just cut away. M doesn't come around. Bond's like, what about this? And M's like, that's a stupid idea. And then we just cut back to Largo.
Yeah. They even mention in that scene that the only lead they have is that Patachi left the air base shortly after the plane launched, right?
Yeah.
Like we do get that establishing in that shot.
Yeah.
Or in that scene. Yeah. Hey, you're right. Oh, do come on, Bond.
Yeah. Let's think of something logical. It's like, well... Logically, they shouldn't have gone missing in the first place. So we cut back to Largo sitting in his like little secret room with lots of control panels and everything. And then he hears people talking and he hears music, and he turns up the radio where he's hearing this from and hits a button. One of the walls in this little room slides open. It's one-way glass, and he's looking into a dance studio, which is where the music and talking is coming from. And in the dance studio is a woman. We will discover this is Domino, and a man who is, I guess, her dance instructor, and they are practicing dancing. And then Largo just sort of watches this happen for a little bit.
Sure does.
This continues for some time, and then it is implied that he sneaks around into the back of the room and sits down and starts playing the piano, because we keep watching them dance, and then he starts playing the piano. Then they're surprised and they're like, oh, Largo, and she's really excited to see him and is like, oh yay, you're back, cool, hooray. So yeah, this is Domino, is played by Kim Basinger, and she's really, really happy to see him, which is notably different from their relationship in Thunderball, where Domino tolerated Largo, like maybe at one time liked him, but now is just sort of like, yep, I'm this guy's mistress, and that's just sort of what I have going on in my life.
Yeah. Whereas like Kim Basinger is definitely playing this very like jubilant and excited to see him. Mm-hmm. And he has a gift for her.
He sure does. What a contrivance. I'm sorry. What a thing. It's pendant that he calls the Tears of Allah, and it looks like cheap costume jewelry, and he says it's very valuable. She gets a little nervous about that. I have to say, one of the things that overall I don't love Brandauer's portrayal of Largo.
Okay.
But there is something about his performance that I still don't like, but in a different way, and I think is maybe a credit to him, is that the character does this thing repeatedly where he tells Domino about this object that he has and is like, this thing is amazing and it's super valuable and really expensive. Here, hold it. And she's like, no, I don't want to hold it because it's super expensive. And he's like, no, hold this, because he wants to see her uncomfortable. He wants her to hold this thing that she is uncomfortable holding because he enjoys making her uncomfortable. He enjoys having that power over her.
Right.
That's too real. That's like a thing that emotionally abusive partners do in real life. Like that.
Right.
It's not like outlandish James Bond villain thing. That's like a creepy boyfriend thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well done. You did that very well. I don't like it.
So I differ a little bit on my overall assessment of Largo in this film. Like I did, just in terms of like whether I like him as a villain or not. I definitely like him as a villain more, I think, than I liked Largo in Thunderball, if only because he's not boring. Like, he has personality. I don't think this movie is very good. Spoilers. The plan is worse. Like, the actual execution of the plan and how this movie goes is mostly worse than Thunderball's version of it. But Largo in this at least has personality.
Yes, he is at least interesting. I completely agree with you there.
He's like a gross schizoid, but he at least has personality.
Yeah, no, it's... I guess what it comes down to is that he's not what I expected of a Bond villain, but he's a good villain. Like he's a good bad guy, and he's upsetting and uncomfortable, but I guess he's not like quite as over the top as I would have thought. But you're right, he's not boring. Speaking of not boring, we cut to the Q scene, except it's not Q. It's a guy in Q Division who Bond refers to as Algie or Algernon. He's essentially Q. He's the Q stand-in. And while Bond is practicing his marksmanship, Algie uses a missile in a fountain pen to blow up one of the targets Bond is looking at.
So this is extremely dangerous. There's a man downrange, Algie.
Yeah, he fires like over Bond's shoulder.
Without Bond being aware he's in the room.
Yeah.
Because like Bond is doing target practice and Algernon walks up behind him, fires this pen, blows up a target, startling Bond to the extent that Bond, still not realizing that Algernon is in the room, almost looks down the barrel of his gun. Trying to figure out what just happened before looking back and realizing he's there.
Mm-hmm. And then what follows is a very strange version of a Q sequence. They sort of walk through the MI6 workshop. Algie makes reference to the fact that they're building a motorbike. That will pay off later. There's a shot where Bond is sort of like looking at a table of stuff, and I stared at this table to try and see if there was some sort of in-joke or reference or something, and there's nothing. It's just a table of junk. Algie gives him a watch that's better than his watch because this one shoots lasers, and then they have an extended talk about how Algie's just happy that he's back in the service, that this great spy is better than the spies they had recently, and I'm glad that you're back. And it's another one of the like,
yeah,
you're a better Bond.
Yeah. The payoff line from Algernon in this one is, I do hope we'll have some gratuitous sex and violence on this one, eh?
Yeah, it's so on the nose.
It is.
So we cut to the Bahamas. Bond is walking around the dock, and there's a woman unloading her car because she's going to go fishing, and he offers to help her out with that, and she makes some sort of joke about how she's hoping to catch something, I don't know, about 6'3", 190 pounds. And he's like, I might be able to help you out with that. And before he can get into the boat and occupy himself for the next several hours, someone yells across the square, Mr. Bond, Mr. Bond, Mr. Bond. And this is a character by the last name of Small-Faucett.
Small-Faucett, hey?
It's hyphenated.
Small-Faucett.
Yes. And this is their man in the Bahamas, as played by Rowan Atkinson. This was Rowan Atkinson's first movie.
Really?
Yeah. 1983. 1983. This would have been the year after the first series of Blackadder, or contemporaneous with Blackadder. And Rowan Atkinson was already well known as a comedian for several seasons of Not the 9 O'Clock News at that time. But this was his first actual movie, and what an odd choice.
Yeah. I mean, he's serviceable in the role that he's cast in as the sort of hapless local agent. He's fine.
He is. I'm going to actually revise something I said earlier. I think he and Barbara Carrera, who plays Fatima Blush, are in the same movie.
Yes, I agree with that.
But nobody else is. This is presented otherwise as a much more serious, modern, I hesitate to use the word gritty, Bond film in a lot of ways, except for this dopey idiot.
And Fatima Blush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's like, I wanted to come get you because I figured you'd like to keep a low profile. And he's like, oh, is that why you were shouting my name across the square? And he's like, oh, shoot, did I do that? Oh, I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah. Nigel gives Bond a little bit of information.
Right. His first name is Nigel. Yes.
It's Nigel Small-Faucett.
Nigel Small-Faucett.
Nigel Small-Faucett. Gives him a little bit of information about the local landscape, and I think he tells him a bit about the flying saucer, which is like anchored in port. That is Largo's ship in this version. Disco Volante in Thunderball.
I was going to say, yeah, Disco Volante means flying saucer, which we didn't talk about in Thunderball, but yeah, it's the same ship. I think Bond says Disco Volante once. At one time, and then everyone else just says flying saucer from that point on.
I didn't catch that.
Maybe it comes up.
You may be right, but I didn't catch it.
Yeah. So then Bond is looking at the photos of the boat at a harborside bar, and a woman goes by on a jet ski. And I thought this was the same woman that he'd been talking to in the harbor.
Ah, but it isn't.
It isn't. This is Fatima Blush, even though you don't know that right away. And anyway, so she splashes him as she goes by, and then there's like an on-ramp to get right from the water and up to the bar.
That seems incredibly dangerous.
Well, it almost is, as she heads right up the ramp and crashes into Bond, and he catches her. Actually, I have the scene up, and I just noticed that in the shot in the background, one of the parasailers totally eats it and bails off their bails off their board in the background of the shot. That's really funny. They chat, and she's putting the moves on him, and he's more than happy to have the moves be put on him. They shake hands, and then they do not let go. It's very odd. Like, they shake hands, and he doesn't let go, and then he uses that to sort of like gesture / lead her to sit down with him at the bar. So they sort of move over, and then she sits down, and then they still don't let go. It's like, no, let go of my hand, please.
You're right.
Yeah, it's so odd.
I have like got this up now. It is, I don't know. It seems to me like, given the circumstances, if you're going to put the moves on each other, using the handshake to like lead them over to the table, that's good.
Yeah.
That works. That's a thing. It's very smooth. But once you're both seated at the bar, you can put your hand down now.
We cut then to Bond's boat. I guess this is Bond's boat, because she's told him, oh, I know a great place to see stuff underwater. Or something. This doesn't seem to have anything to do with why he's there.
No, it has. This was one of the things that I was like, this is super, super weird. She's like, I want to help you find what you're looking for. That's basically her sales pitch to like, you should hang out with me. Right? Is like, I will help you find what you're looking for. And then they're out on this boat. They're getting ready to go scuba diving. But there's never any kind of explanation as to what they're scuba diving for, or why they're scuba diving, or how scuba diving is going to help them, because it's not like they're scuba diving at least at this point to go like look at the flying saucer, or literally there's no indication whatsoever as to what he hopes to find here or what she's leading him to.
Okay, good. It's not just me.
No, it is this whole sequence is a complete waste of time.
Yep. She says that they still have hours before they even get to where they're going, so they should occupy their time, and she starts slipping her clothes off, and then there's an extended sequence of cuts of the exterior of the boat, and then their torsos just visible through this door on the below deck of the ship. Just like where there's scuba tanks and ropes and stuff hanging out. Like, this does not look remotely comfortable while they clearly just have a lot of sex. It's like cut to fish, cut back to them having sex, cut to more water, cut to them having sex. It just goes on for a while.
It goes on for a while and gets progressively more ridiculous, which I kind of love. We're looking through the door into this room, and their bodies, like, we can only really see their heads and shoulders through the door frame.
Mm-hmm.
In the first shot, very standard. They're lying on the floor in a rumpled pile of like clothes and towels, and you can see them, and they're like in an embrace and smooching and what have you. And then it cuts away, and then it cuts back. No one is in the door. And then suddenly Fatima leans back into the doorway, looking pleased. Then it cuts away, and then it cuts back, and they're back in an embrace on the ground. And then the ship lists, and they slide out of shot. And there's a really good little transition there too, because they slide out of shot with the listing of the ship, and then it cuts to underwater as two divers drop into the water at an angle. And so, like, I don't know, I think insofar as silly James Bond sex scenes go, I think this one is actually pretty clever. It's just fun. It is huge tone problems with this movie, but the actual scene is pretty fun.
All right, fair enough. What do you think about the scene underwater?
Huge waste of time. Why are we here?
Yes. Fatima attaches a magnetic thing to Bond's scuba tank. I just realized this has to be her boat because this sets off some sort of a alarm on a receiver in the bridge of the boat. And she's like, look, a wrecked ship. And Bond goes towards it. He can't see that she's doing this, but she like waves, all right, peace, and leaves. And then passing her going the other direction is a shark. Yay, sharks. With a receiver thing attached to its dorsal fin. The implication here is that sharks are being mind controlled to home in on the receiver that she has attached to Bond's scuba gear.
Yeah, we have sharks with frickin' homing devices on their heads.
Yeah, it's about as close as it gets to Dr. Evil, honestly.
Pretty close. I mean, homing sharks is certainly a step up from every other manner of shark we've had in a Bond movie to date.
Yeah, and so it's a very long sequence with what looks to be some amount of injury happening to actual sharks. The end result of which is that Bond realizes what's happening, pulls the thing off his scuba tank, throws it down into the bowels of this wreck, and escapes. And then we cut to actually the woman that he met at the harbor who is fishing, and she literally reels Bond in because he saw like the lure going by, and he's like, I told you you'd catch me, haha. That's it.
That's it. That was the whole purpose of this scene.
Yep. There's a very brief sequence evocative of the Junkanoo, perhaps, of some local music, and Fatima is dancing around and then sees Bond arriving back to land with the woman, realizes that he's not dead yet, so she heads to his hotel to ensure that he actually becomes dead at some point. And just every scene that she's in, she flounces through.
She does. I actually really like Fatima. Again, she's in a different movie. You know what movie she's in? Goldeneye.
Oh, yeah.
She is so completely the template for Xenia Onatopp.
She's very close to that, isn't she?
Yeah. She adds so much flavor to this otherwise kind of bland movie. Her costumes are garish and outlandish and big. The way her ultimate undoing is very Xenia Onatopp as well, which we'll get to eventually. But yeah, she fully she walks up a flight of stairs in this scene and pivots on the landing to go up the next flight of stairs with like a toss of this cape she's wearing. And it like furls in the wind. She's very theatrical.
Yeah. She seems to also have a similar joy, if not quite to the extent of the sexual pleasure that Onatopp finds from killing. But we'll talk more about that when we get to Goldeneye, I'm sure.
So she goes to Bond's room, and we know this because there are some good shots in this movie. There's some stuff in this movie that's operating on a pretty again in a different movie, but is trying to do clever things, and sometimes it works. So the shot in Bond's room is underneath Bond's bed, and we know it's Bond's room because there are a pair of gentleman's shoes untied sitting in the center of shot. Fatima is wearing pair of pants, one leg of which is black and one leg of which is red, with black and red high-heeled shoes. And we see these shoes on either side of the gentleman's shoes. She clearly sits down on the bed and then reaches under the bed, places a brick of C4 with a remote detonator on it, and then gets up and leaves.
And then we cut to Bond and this fishing woman checking back in, getting their keys, and they say like, oh, I'm in room whatever. What room are you in? And she says, oh, I'm in room whatever. And you immediately know, so they won't be in Bond's room. Like, I figured that out as soon as they had that exchange, because what then happens is that we see them making out and kissing and having sex, and Fatima hits the trigger and a thing blows up, and from outside the building we see the room blow up, but it's not the room that they're in. And it's like, oh, well, I guess we got it.
So scrolling back a minute to the checking in scene, what do you think of Bond's suit in this scene?
Yeah, why is he dressed like the lead singer from Dexy's Midnight Runners?
So all he had was his wetsuit because she fished him out of the sea. And presumably, I don't know, maybe he had a bathing suit under the wetsuit, but he presumably got this pair of overalls that he is wearing along with nothing else because it was all she had on her boat, I guess?
Yeah, so it's not a great look.
This is Sean Connery as Tom Sawyer. Like,
yes.
It's, not a great look.
No. We then cut to Nice in the south of France. We see a plane landing. Bond is walking through the airport, and this woman comes in step beside him. And I thought it was the woman he was just having sex with. This is the other part where I was like, who is this? But no, this is the local person who is in 2 scenes. It's just, there's just so many supporting female characters in this movie.
Her name is what? Nicole?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So he steps out of the airport and a man hurls, I think it's a cricket ball at him.
It is.
Yeah. And he like flinches and catches it. And then the guy's like, got you. And Bond goes, oh, Felix, what's up? And it's Felix Leiter, played by Bernie Casey. I forgot that Felix was in Thunderball.
He does a pretty good job of Felix. I'd buy it.
Yeah, for sure. So they all get in the car and there's a trailer being dragged behind the car. I don't know if they say what it is at this point, but it's something from Q or LG, I guess.
It's pretty clear what it is.
Yeah.
Based on the size and dimensions of the trailer.
They're at a house very high up in the mountains, but near the harbor, where they can use this enormous telescope to take a look at the flying saucer and do some reconnaissance. The flying saucer itself, this super yacht,
hell of a boat.
It's a hell of a boat. So in the end credits, they make reference to, thanks to the owner of this yacht for your kindness in allowing us to film on it. Thanks, AK. No full name is given.
Okay.
At the time, that yacht, called the Nayila at the time, the Nabila, that's it. It was the Nabila. Anyway, at the time it was owned by Adnan Khashoggi, who was very heavily implicated as the middleman in the Iran-Contra affair.
Oh, yeah.
Like a key arms dealer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I assume, why they didn't want to say his name.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Had he already been implicated at this point? I admit I don't know the years or the timeline of the Iran-Contra scandal.
No, this was a couple years before that.
Okay. So it may just be that they wanted to keep him relatively, or he had asked to be kept relatively anonymous.
Perhaps, yeah.
Who knows? That won't be the only uncomfortable political association that we have to deal with in a future Bond movie.
No, that's true. It's not even the last one with this one, because if you want to know where that ship ended up, it is currently owned by one of the crown princes of Saudi Arabia. But in between those people, it was sold to the Sultan of Brunei and then Donald Trump.
Cool.
There's a very limited number of people who can afford super yachts, you see.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bond sees Domino dancing around on the deck of the boat and is like, hey, Felix, come look. She's dancing around on the deck of the boat. Then they see Largo and they're like, oh, yeah, look, there's Largo. That's cool. Nicole is able to confirm that, yes, she's the sister of that guy. It's weird that they're having this confirmed now, since we, the audience, already know this. Maybe they're just hammering it home.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I assume that's the case. The connection has now been made, and Bond has a target.
She goes ashore to a health club for a massage appointment. Bond follows in behind her and is just sort of like, do you service men? And the woman at the front desk, once again, just enamored immediately, is like, we do. And it's very weird. And then in the next moment we see Bond, he's now dressed like staff.
Yeah.
And it's like, what just happened? And even if they do service men at this spa, there aren't any others inside. There's just a room full of women who every one of them, their heads are just like, oh, who's that? And heads into where Domino is and is like, hey, what's up? I'm sorry I'm late. I'm here to do your massage. How's it going? To speed through this scene, he gets information out of her basically about Largo and the boat and everything without her realizing who he is. She just thinks that he's a masseuse who works there, even though it is clear that this man has never performed or I guess received a massage in his life.
Yeah, it's the world's most awkward, bizarre massage.
How has Bond made it this far in his life and not even received a massage to the point of being able to accurately pretend like he knows how to do one? Because he's standing at her head trying to rub the length of her back. It just looks super awkward.
It does. Truthfully, my favorite thing about this scene is the little bottle of baby oil that he pulls up and like squirts into his hands because it's clearly empty.
As they get more and more comfortable and she asks him to go lower and lower on her back, he spots the actual masseuse arriving and excuses himself. And then there's a comedy moment of like, what happened to the guy that was just doing that? And she's like, what do you mean? He doesn't work here. Blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't seem too perturbed by that.
She gives sort of a like disapproving look and then immediately sort of realizes that I guess she enjoyed it and is willing to go with it.
Nicole drives Bond to a casino and Bond says, okay, head back to the villa. And we then cut to Fatima in a nearby car telling her driver to find out where that villa is. And she goes into this casino after Bond.
Wearing, again, another amazing costume.
Yeah. The casino is hosting a charity ball for orphaned children. This is the Casino Royale in Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
Not ever named. It's only visible on a sign because I just paused the video. And there's a very strange interaction with the man at the door because Bond just wanders right in and the guy is like, no, you get back out here. There's a noise from off camera and the guy who's chased after him comes back into shot doubled over as if Bond has just kicked him in the stomach or groin. It's a little unclear. Bond directs him with no protest from this man into the broom closet or whatever and then puts his hand up and is like, okay, I'm going to put this thing in your hand. It's a grenade. It will explode if you do not keep it exactly level. Do you understand? Okay, bye. And like pushes a button on it and leaves. And it's just, why not just knock him out? It's so weird.
It's kind of, you're right. It is weird. It's unnecessary. Just put him in the broom closet, knock him out and tie him up.
I guess, okay.
But again, it's cute.
You're right. I don't mind that moment as much as I am confused as to why the guy just doesn't object while Bond is steering him into a closet.
Well, he's got a gun on him.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got his gun. Right.
Yeah, he takes his gun and points it at him.
I forgot the doorman had a gun.
Because like Bond has to do this because he was told in the previous scene that he wouldn't be able to get in because it's invitation only.
Right. And then ditches the bouncer's gun in a champagne bucket in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
So he wanders around. Everyone's playing casino games. He spots Domino, follows her because she's tired of playing whatever, it looks like craps, maybe, whatever they're playing. And she wants to go and play Gravatar.
Yeah, Gravatar. Yeah, the Casino Royale has a whole arcade.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There is a kind of a cool shot where she lets herself into the arcade room with the mirrored doors and the doors open. She does not close them behind her. And we see Fatima reflected in the door, who then sort of keeps an eye on her. But yeah, she goes up, she's looking, there's like Centipede and Galaga, and she's like, ooh, Gravatar. And like, she doesn't say that, but she's like, ooh, I'll take a look at this. At no point does she get to play because Bond appears immediately, but it's like, man, Atari, what were you doing getting them to worm this into this movie? This is this arcade is so out of place in Casino Royale. I love it. It's ridiculous.
It's a super well kitted out arcade too.
Yeah. But it's like people in suits and amazing gowns and dresses, and it's like, yeah, let's play Dig Dug. So they head over to the bar, they get their drinks. Fatima alerts Largo to the fact that this is happening. And there's just a great shot of him hiding behind a centipede machine. with the enormous, like, snarly centipede from the art on the machine. Largo and Fatima have this little conversation where she's like, yo, Domino's gonna be a problem, just FYI. And he's like, well, you keep failing to kill Bond, so your problem is that. And yeah, one day you might have to kill Domino. We'll see how that goes. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, okay. But yeah, he does sort of lay into her a little bit, being like, how many times have you tried to kill him again?
I think he accuses her of like wanting Bond for herself.
Yeah.
Then Largo crashes them out at the bar.
Yeah.
And introduces himself and is like, hello, how's it going? Welcome. I see you've met Domino. I'm Max Largo. I have a cool thing I want to show you. Why don't you come with me? And walks them into this palatial room that has a giant table with this weird perpendicular apparatus in the middle. And Largo explains that it's a video game that he designed. It is 2-player. You are playing for nuclear conquest of a country selected at random. He does some bad manners in this because he does not fully explain the rules or the like gameplay mechanics. He does offer a practice. Well, he doesn't offer a practice round, but he ends up providing a practice round. So the gist is a country will be selected at random from the countries of the world. Sectors of the country will light up and they have to use the joysticks in front of them to illuminate the sectors. Whoever claims the most sectors wins conquest of the nation. And as this is a casino, they are putting dollar values on the line. And each country is worth a different amount of money. Each player has 2 nuclear missiles that they can use to fire at the other one to take them out of play, but they also have shields that can be deployed to stop the nuclear missiles from from connecting. Whoever wins the money, and Largo is doing this as a fundraiser for his charity for orphan children. So he's like, I've never found a worthy opponent, so play me, and you can make your donation to my charity, basically. So then we have this extended sequence of them playing this video game against one another.
You have just done a better job of explaining how to play this game than they do in the movie.
That's true.
Because this scene sucks. Because
it sure does.
You as a viewer have no idea what's going on, and you're just watching Bond and Largo make bleep bloops on this CG video game, and you're like, I can't tell what's happening. It's edited so quickly. Numbers are going up. Who's winning? How are they winning? How do you succeed at this game? It is completely unclear how you be good at it. So bad.
Yeah, it does remain unclear how you be good at it, but you can sort of piece together sort of retroactively once the scene is over what's going on. And I've seen this scene enough times in my life that I have a pretty good grasp of it. The thing that Largo neglects to mention is that if you are losing, the joysticks deliver an electric current into your hands, causing pain. You feel the pain of the country you are failing to. Well, he describes it as like you feel the pain of your soldiers. So as you lose sectors of the country, you feel the pain of the men who have died under your command is like the meaning of it. But mechanically, Bond loses a few rounds here. All we really need to know is they play each other. Largo's kind of getting off on causing Bond pain. They play the first round. He's like, oh, since I forgot to mention that it's painful, we won't count that round. Let's play another. And so they play another, and Bond starts trying to sort of like tolerate the pain and like fights longer, but still loses. He can't hang on long enough. They do a few countries. I think they do like France and Spain and the US, and Bond keeps losing. And the dollar values of the countries that he keeps losing get added together as the amount he owes the casino. And he ends up owing something like $56,000. Like it's not a small sum of money. And Largo is like, well, you can make your donation to my charity. Bond is like, can we play one more? Largo's like, well, I mean, you already owe a ton. You sure? And he's like, yes. Can we play one more for all the remaining countries in the world? Largo is like, it's your money, and sits back down, and they play another one for the remainder of the world. And of course, Bond wins. He trash cans Largo. You can sort of watch the scores because the scores that are listed at the top of screen actually are relevant. So when Bond is winning, his score is higher.
Yeah, but I can't tell if it's a purely like a speed Twitch gaming thing with the joysticks, or if there's strategy, or like I don't understand
No, the way the game works is total nonsense.
Okay.
It's just lights and bloops. But at least in terms of the mechanics of the scene, it sort of makes sense, even if the mechanics of the game don't. Bond forces Largo to concede by letting go of the joysticks, because that's the rule. If you let go of the joysticks, you forfeit the round. Because all of the countries of the world are worth much, much more than the 3 countries that he had already lost to Largo. We never learn how Bond suddenly got good. He apparently just threw 3 games in a row. Apparently he's amazing at this game he's never seen before that Largo designed himself. But anyhow, it's irrelevant, because Largo loses. And so Largo digs out his checkbook and is like, all right, $325,000 minus the $56,000. So I owe you $270,000 or $267,000, I think is what he comes to is the total. And he's like, all right, who should I make that out to? Bond is like, keep the money. I will consider us even as long as I get one dance with Domino.
This scene happened much more quickly with Baccarat in Thunderball. In fact, it wasn't even that. It was because he'd won like a hand at Baccarat, and Domino asked for a drink, and then he said, "Oh, I'll get her a drink," and Largo was like, "Oh, that'd be great."
Yeah,
and that was all that it needed.
Instead, it's like 5 or 6 minutes of screen time spent playing this stupid game to then get to a full-blown ballroom dance scene.
So this is utterly wild. This is completely like having a dance with Domino, right? It's like, oh, okay, sure. So they're going to go dance. No. This is everyone has stopped what they are doing and is watching Bond and Domino dance. And it's really weird. It's really uncomfortable. And during the dance is when Bond is like trying to finish the conversation they were having earlier, including like, oh, don't react because everyone's looking at us right now, but Largo killed your brother.
Yeah, like in the middle of a dip.
Yeah. I don't like it. It's not a good scene. It's completely weird and like what a strange tonal shift. I like Kim Basinger in other things, but I don't like Domino.
Yeah, and so for the record, they were given a tango. They have been given a tango to dance.
They're tangoing.
It is like they are the only 2 people on the dance floor. As the entire casino is gathered around watching them tango, and it's staged like we're in a dance movie. Like we're dancing with the stars. They have command of the floor. It is so weird. And so out of place in a Bond movie.
Watching from above is Largo and Fatima, and Largo tells her, is like, oh, you get to do some killing now, and she's really excited about it.
Yeah, she's super jazzed.
Prances down the stairs. And Largo, first of all, Largo interrupts their dance.
So does that mean he has to write a prorated check for the difference?
Thank you.
He cuts in.
Yeah. What the hell?
I need to make up my mind. Do I want them to dance or do I not want them to dance? Because at this point, Largo's released me from the dance scene.
Yeah. On his way out, Bond takes his hold-level bomb device back from the doorman, which, of course, is his cigar case, and presumably never would have exploded at all. He heads back to the villa, only to find Nicole is dead in the bottom of a weird waterbed thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not clear.
I don't know what this thing is. Anyway, yeah, and as Fatima is just on her way out, and Bond gives chase. Boy, howdy, does he give chase. So he sees her leave in her red Renault car. Not rental, sorry, Renault. Renault, I suppose, how it would be spelled. And so he dashes into the garage, and the sides of that strange trailer fall apart, and it's the motorbike that Algie mentioned earlier. So we do get some payoff for that.
Yes. Can we talk about how much this motorbike sucks?
Please.
As a Bond gadget?
Yes.
Okay, so remember when Algernon was like, if I can get this darn thing to work, I have a motorbike. It's just a motorbike. It has 2 gadgets. It has bumpers, and it has rocket propulsion, which I guess is the differentiating factor. But it has little deployable bumpers. It doesn't have guns. It doesn't have rockets. It doesn't have laser beams. It doesn't have an oil slick. It even looks kind of bulky and ugly.
Yeah.
This motorcycle sucks.
It's not good. And I put it to you that it's not the worst thing about this chase either.
Okay.
What I found really jarring about this particular car chase, which does have a cool moment in the middle of it, which I'll talk about, is that it has awful continuity. It is really difficult to tell who's chasing who and where they are and what's going on. It's just a lot of disconnected shots of vehicles moving, but with no greater sense of what's happening.
Yeah.
So pretty quickly, there's a bit where she radios in and they corner him in a tunnel. There's a trailer truck with its back down. They all use their cars to sort of herd Bond on his bike and also at gunpoint to like herd him into this semi-trailer. And he eventually relents and goes up into the trailer, whips the bike around inside the trailer, and then as they raise the back of the truck, because it's hinged at the bottom, he then tears back out of the trailer and uses that as a ramp to jump over the cars that are boxing him into the tunnel. That's the coolest part of this sequence. Yeah. Because then they're chasing him, and there's some bits with the gadgets, like you mentioned, like the bumpers and the rocket-propelled thing, and he makes them flip, and then now he's chasing Fatima again, but how that happens isn't shown on camera, and so it's just like, oh, now those two crashed, and now he's behind her again? Where are they now? What's going on?
Oh, no, they do show it, but it's way earlier in the scene.
What, huh?
Fatima is the first one out of the tunnel.
Ahead of Bond. It is
Fatima and then the two chase cars.
Uh-huh.
And Bond, after escaping from the tunnel, pulls into an alley. Fatima and one of the chase cars goes by, and then Bond pulls in between the two chase cars. He fights the two chase cars, and they both crash and go off the street or whatever. Like, geographically, that puts him behind Fatima in the chase line because she was the lead car. I mean, it's a terrible scene because we have had to deconstruct it in order to get to that point.
It's not even, to be clear, car chases are hard, and it's not even the worst car chase from a Bond film.
Oh, for sure.
Again, it's been a while, but I'm prepared to make the call now that I'm pretty sure the worst car chase in a Bond film is the one from the beginning of Quantum of Solace, where Bond is driving a dark gray car being pursued by two black cars, and it is effing impossible to tell who is who. I think that's the worst car chase, but I'm going to have to wait till I watch that movie again. But I just found it very confusing.
Oh, it is.
The end result is they end up in it looks like a cave. It's like the base of a big like stone structure down by the docks, and it's all full of like maritime supplies and things. Fatima knocks him off his motorcycle and holds him at gunpoint. God, her pants are out of this world. So she demands, this is at gunpoint, and her job is to kill him. She demands that he say that he would do her, or that he thinks that she's amazing or something.
She says, like, as she's gonna kill him, she basically is like, well, at least you got to spend one night in my rapturous presence before you met your end. And he's like, I've had better. And she's like, no, that is a lie. You have not. No one has. Not only am I the best you've ever had, here is a piece of scrap paper. Right, damn you. As your final proclamation that I am without rival as the number one sexual partner you have ever had in your short time on this earth. Right.
What a strange demand. So, of course, Bond pulls out the pen that we know has a rocket inside it. While he makes a bit of a show of it before he goes to write, he ends up pointing it at her and shooting her with this rocket that explodes. So she explodes.
She explodes.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fake out where it like impales her and she's like, ow, what the? Haha, you fool, I'm not dead. And then she explodes.
She really explodes too.
Oh, she goes
up in a fireball.
He tries to leave. There's a bunch of police outside, but luckily Felix is come in the secret back entrance or whatever. And he's like, come on, we got to go. And they sneak away undetected by taking off their suits and going by disguised as a boxer and his trainer.
Yeah. By wearing just their underwear.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That's kind of funny.
It's cute. Bond riding his bicycle with the weirdest upturned drop bars for some reason. But Bond riding that bike barefoot.
Well, and lighter jogging in his dress shoes. So they both get their scuba gear and start poking around underneath the Disco Volante. This is something that also happened in Thunderball. And there's a trapdoor which Bond gets through, but Felix doesn't. And Bond is now in the bowels of the Flying Saucer. Bond is now in the bowels of the Flying Saucer. So he sort of lets himself up to try and sneak around. And as soon as he pops out on deck, a butler appears and says, "Mr. Largo is expecting you." And he gives Bond a fuzzy dressing gown and brings him to see Mr. Largo.
So, how?
I don't know. Not a clue.
Sure, but how?
Yeah. Like shot of a security camera or a sonar or something, please? Anything? No? So Largo shows him around. There's a brief shot of Felix looking annoyed that he didn't get on the boat. Largo shows him around, and it's really funny. He shows him the main sort of, central hub room. He gives Bond a drink because he's like, "Yeah, would you want a drink?" And Bond's like, "Yeah, a martini, sure." And then he's like, "Yeah, so here you go, Bond. Here's my cool stuff. Anyway, I got work to do, so you just wander around. You're free to go around the boat and do whatever you want," which is like, what?
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
What's wrong with you? Like, I know I jokingly hammer on that from time to time of like, why not just kill him? But like, particularly in this instance, it just seems baffling, and it gets worse, but it seems baffling that it's like, how are you cool with him just hanging out?
Yeah.
On his way out of this room, Bond notices that one of the TVs says something about the Tears of Allah, which will come up.
Oh yeah, this movie has a plot.
Yeah, vaguely.
There's actually a story. It's been a while.
Yeah. As he wanders past the dance hall, Domino pokes her head out and is like, "Hey, we need to talk." And the butler like apparates and goes, "There's clothing for you this way." And they sort of indicate that they'll catch back up with one another. And they do. Bond heads back to the dance hall and is like, "Hey, how's it going?" And Bond's like, "Shh, I think," because he thinks the room is bugged. So he turns on some loud music. In fact, the room is bugged, as we know from before, so Largo opens up his one-way glass and sees that they're talking, and he tries to fiddle with the radio to hear what they're talking about, but he can't. Bond is like, "What's going on? Do you know anything about this thing called the Tears of Allah?" "This is just something I saw on a monitor in a room full of monitors of things I don't understand, but this is what I'm asking about." Mm-hmm. A little unbelievable. And she's like, "Oh, it's this, but I don't know." Bond goes and looks at this thing. It's like a rock with some shape on it in metal. They continue talking, and then Bond sort of susses out the one-way glass and is like, "All right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to kiss you, and I want you to react like you're really, really into it. Okay?" And she's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, 1, I'm hoping to provoke a reaction. 2, for me." I don't exactly recall what he says for the second thing, but basically it's like, because it seems fun or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Okay, sure." And they do that, and this does indeed get the intended reaction. And we cut to Largo running out of his room and bursting into the dance practice room, which is now empty because they both ran out of there. And then Domino pulls the fire alarm. All the dudes leave the central control room for some reason, and Bond runs into the central control room because he's trying to get a radio message out. He finds a way into Largo's secret little revolving hidey hole, does get a message out while he watches Largo wander around the dance hall with a fire axe, breaking shit.
Provoked, like reaction provoked.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like then Largo looks at the one-way glass and is like, he must be in there, and then runs out of the room, and then we cut away to M.
Yeah. My one thought about this is you have just given the British secret agent that you know is trying to foil your plans, and whom you have repeatedly tried and failed to kill, free reign of your boat. And then the fire alarm goes off.
Yeah.
Why are you following evacuation procedure under those circumstances?
Why are you just standing around in your dance room attacking stuff with an axe?
Why would you vacate the control room? Literally, the alarm goes off. If I'm Largo or any of the staff, I'm like, that's Bond.
Largo's motivations do not make sense to me. The brief scene with M is that the guy comes in and says, "Here, we've received word from 007. It just says Palmyra," because it's the name of Largo's house.
Yeah.
Same as it was in Thunderball.
Located in North Africa this time.
North Africa, Palmyra is, I think, the radio that went through. And then we cut to like them looking at Palmyra, which is like a stone castle in the north of Africa, through binoculars. Bond and Largo and Domino are there on the deck of the boat. They've all changed clothes and they're all just palling around.
Yep.
This is the part where I was like, it gets weirder. It's just like, what is happening? Like, there's always some amount of like the villain treating Bond like a guest, following sort of like rules of etiquette, like, well, you are a guest in my home, Mr. Bond, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this is just like, do you not remember what happened 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, it's like, why do they even want to bring Bond to Palmyra?
I don't know.
There's no shoot him and huck him overboard in the Mediterranean. Like, there's literally no possible reason to bring him here.
No, because he's showing off his like house and amazing collection of artifacts, but he's showing off to Domino. He's not like, check me out, Mr. Bond. Look how cool I am.
No, he locks Bond in the dungeon.
Yeah, they have a dungeon.
They do have a dungeon.
It's like up in a tower, but yeah, it's full of vultures too. It's amazing.
The vultures are a nice touch. The vultures and the numerous desiccated skeletons.
It's very
all over the floor.
Very silly. So yeah, this is the point that I mentioned earlier where he does the thing again where he's like, this is the most expensive thing in my collection. Here, hold it. She's like, no, I really don't want to hold it. He's like, hold it, because he wants to see her be uncomfortable or whatever. And then there's like a weird thing where he kisses her, which she's not into, and then he grabs it and like makes her drop it. It looks really awkward. Like, I can't tell if it's meant to look like an accident or if it's meant to look like he's doing it on purpose, because he very clearly grabs it and lets go out of her hands.
Yeah, I get the feeling that it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, it doesn't come up or matter in anything other than this scene, but going with the sort of like emotionally abusive nature, it's the kind of thing you would do. It's like, well, now you owe me a new one of those.
Yeah.
You were holding it and it broke.
So now I'm going to sell you to the oil sheiks.
Which is what he tries to do.
Yeah, she gets tied up to a place in the square. Then he goes and talks to Bond, and we'll find out what happens to her. So yeah, there's these vultures that live in this place because there's no way for them to come in and out, it seems. I mean, maybe they can fit through. There's like small windows. Bond is shackled to the wall, assuming that the intent is that he's going to get picked to death by these vultures. Largo puts the radio, he has like a boombox, which he puts in front of Domino, hits play on some music, and then leaves because he's got to go do his stuff with those. Remember those bombs they stole?
I do.
He tells Bond one of them is under Washington, D.C., one under the White House of Washington, D.C., and the other one, maybe I won't tell you where the other one is. And then he leaves because he's got to go do Spectre things. Mm-hmm. Bond uses his laser watch to break his shackles as he looks out the window and sees a bunch of men on horseback arrive to bid on Domino.
This scene is not unproblematic.
No, it sure isn't.
This scene is real troubling.
Yeah, in just a variety of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Bond, for his part, uses the laser to break the bars on the window, and then the guard outside hears this happen and runs in and sees that the bars are broken, goes over to the window and looks outside, where Bond hasn't escaped but has just hidden himself just outside the window, so grabs the guy and yanks him out the window.
Yep.
I actually liked that. Bond then sneaks around, disguises himself as a man on horseback by wrapping himself up with a head covering, rides the horse past Domino, scoops her up on his horse, and they ride away. I don't know. Well, they try to ride away. There's a portcullis that lowers, and then they try to escape from all these men and horses with guns that are chasing them.
Horses with guns.
Sorry, men with guns on horses. I mean, a horse with guns would be able to defend himself from the stunt where Bond and Domino and the horse go flying off the top of this castle.
That's true.
Which it looks very problematic for the horse.
So I was thinking about that. They do like diving horse shows are a thing. They are still a thing. I don't know that they're inhumane. Maybe they're inhumane on principle, but I don't necessarily think this is like inherently injurious to the horse.
That's fair.
But it makes for a good stunt. Except for the the really poorly matted horse and Bond and Domino
falling down the side of the building.
Falling down the side of the building, yeah.
Luckily for them, MI6 has received the message, and a submarine is firing pew-pew rocket laser whatevers at the castle and blowing up all the men with guns. And so
I took it as artillery, but I want to know which submarine the British Navy has that has like a howitzer mounted to the tower of the submarine.
To the base of the tower.
Like, it appears to be firing artillery shells. Which seems like the kind of thing that maybe a destroyer could do, but not a submarine so much.
No. Thus, on the submarine, Bond and Domino have a shower together and try to figure out how they're going to stop Largo from blowing stuff up.
Well, they better hurry because we got 24 minutes left in the film.
This movie's so long. They've tracked the flying saucer to a bay near Egypt, or possibly in Egypt, and it stopped, and they don't know what that means for where the missiles could be. And Bond sees the bay and is like, oh, wait a minute. Yo, Domino, do you still have that thing? Even though you clearly weren't wearing it in the last scene when you jumped off the castle, but we'll just sort of pretend to not worry about that. He grabs it and looks at it, and the shape of the metalwork on the thing is the same as the shape of the bay, and there's another little piece of metalwork indicating some distance inland, and they're like, that must be where it is. Why did Largo make this thing? Why did he give it to Domino? Why does this exist? They discover that there's an underwater cave, and that must be where it is, which that's very reminiscent of Thunderball. Not reminiscent of Thunderball is that there is not an enormous underwater fight scene in the back half of this movie. So, you know, it's not all bad. It's not great, but it's not all bad.
Yeah.
So we see Largo and some scuba divers with their little submersibles going underwater to this cave. And when they surface in the cave, it's this Egyptian temple. It's this underwater temple that they've excavated to some extent.
Yeah, they built it around a spring, like a freshwater spring.
So how are Bond and Felix gonna get there quickly enough to help out?
Well, you know what Thunderball had?
What did Thunderball have?
A jetpack.
It did have a jetpack, didn't it?
Not to be outdone by Thunderball, this movie has 2 jetpacks. Sort of. They're these weird little jet pods that Felix and Bond stand on. I assume this is also based on some sort of prototype that some military somewhere has done, but they're these little standing jet pods, and so they stand on the jet pods and they pod their way over to land and then immediately get back in the water again. So it's unclear why they had to do it that way as opposed to just swimming.
They fire them out of like missiles. Like the submarine launches these missiles up and then they like break open and they come out in these little weird jetpack things, and it's I don't know. I can't find any information about how real these things were or weren't. They look really silly.
They do look really silly.
It's funny that all they use the jetpacks for is flying like past a village that will become marginally relevant later and then landing again immediately.
Yeah, and then going back in the water. That was the thing that gets me, is that I guess Bond has already done the being like fired out of a torpedo tube into a diving situation, so we got to one up that. It does feel totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, Felix and Bond don their scuba gear, dive back into the water, find the underground cave systems we have previously seen Largo and crew swim up. So they swim through and emerge into this temple area as well. We now sort of get what is the climax of the movie as Bond and Felix watch Largo and crew prepping the missiles, wheeling the missile in to set it up. The intent here being from Largo that he's gonna bomb this network of like this cave network and cut off access to the world's oil supply.
Right.
This is never really made very clear over the course of the film at all. Spectre has told the nations of Earth or of NATO, it's like, I want 25% of your yearly expenditure on oil.
Right.
And we get a few sort of like dribbles of information over the course of the movie saying that like, well, the oil fields are connected by this delicate cave network. And now we're in this cave network with the bomb that Largo's going to blow up. And so they've fed us all this information over the course of the movie, but they never actually connect the dots for us. Any other Bond movie, it would be like, we're totally going to blow up the oil. If they won't pay us for the oil, then we're going to blow up the oil, driving up the cost of oil, which they will then buy from us. There's going to be a much more coherent and well-constructed and at least like explained villainous plan in any other Bond movie.
Yeah.
This one doesn't do that. This one is just like, we're going to blow up the oil fields.
And the annoying thing is how on the nose Blofeld is with it. You know, they never really talk too much about what Spectre stands for, the initialism. Like, it's mentioned once, but Blofeld in this one is like, this will be the extortion and the terrorism. Like, we've done the terrorism, now we're doing the extortion, and if you don't do our extortion, then we'll do the revenge.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, look, I appreciate commitment to branding, but
It's really on the nose.
and again, we get more of that scientist looking like, oh, I don't know about this, that nothing happens with in these scenes. And so they're, loading this missile into position, and they have a rope latched around this big old statue, which Bond manages to lever the head off of to interrupt them. And then there's a big shootout. Felix throws a grenade, which lights a guy on fire, which is a neat trick. I didn't know a normal grenade could do that, especially since the guy was not like directly beside the explosion. He just sort of bang, poof. Felix manages to hold on long enough for backup from the Navy to arrive. And so we get this big gun battle between men wearing black scuba suits and men wearing black scuba suits.
Yeah. The thing I want to comment on in this scene is how loud would this gunfight be?
Oh my God.
In real life.
Oh.
Everyone here has permanent hearing damage now.
Oh, that sounds
just
terrible.
Like automatic weapons in an underground, like an enclosed underground cave space. Can you imagine the echo?
What gets me, and like on the one hand, I hate to keep doing it. On the other hand, it's impossible not to directly compare this to Thunderball. But I mean, this, even just as a Bond movie, right, is like this whole sequence. It's a massive set. And there's like maybe one shot that only kind of shows off how big it is. Like it's not the set isn't big enough. It doesn't look grand on film.
Yeah.
It is not done justice, right? So like the scope, the like grand finale battle, like I assume this is meant to evoke something like The Spy Who Loved Me or You Only Live Twice, with the big,
right,
the Navy descending on all the Spectre cronies and having the big battle in the massive set. But like the set just doesn't look that big or impressive, and it's hard to tell the people apart, and it's just sort of like some shots of dudes with guns, and it's not that exciting or interesting.
Yeah, the Navy reinforcements are like 6 guys.
Yeah.
As opposed to 100 ninjas. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's not tremendously interesting. The major plot revelation is that at the spring, Largo gets away with the bomb. So as this whole gunfight is going on, Largo manages to load the bomb into the spring and scoot down further into the cave. Bond goes to chase, but Largo manages to blow out the roof, collapsing access. So Bond makes his way back through this huge fight to Felix and is like, Largo got away, he's gone deeper into the tunnels, but I think I have an idea. Bond makes an exit, gets picked up by a helicopter. He's like, can you call a helicopter? Gets picked up by the helicopter, and Frogman dives off the helicopter into the well in the middle of the little village we saw while they were on rocket packs. This drops him further up the underground river that this cave system has been developed by. He manages to catch up with Largo and the bomb. Further along, there's a short fight scene between Largo and Bond in the underwater as Bond tries to sort of reclaim control over the bomb.
Which ends with Largo appearing like he may have the upper hand and then being shot by somebody off camera with a harpoon gun, and the camera pans over and we see that it's Domino.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with that.
Do you only have one?
I have several, actually. At no point did she seem nearly as upset with her brother dying. She seemed upset, but not vengeful towards Largo, whereas in Thunderball, Domino was like, I'm going to kill that guy. More importantly, in this movie, she's a dancer. And like not particularly consequential to the plot as it happens, but she's a dancer and has at no point been shown to scuba dive or use a harpoon gun.
Yeah.
So it's completely out of nowhere. Like I was like, I wonder how they're going to do this final fight with Bond and Largo. And then he gets shot with a harpoon gun. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I wonder who that was. And it pans over and shows Domino. And I was like, why? What?
How?
Also,
how did she get in here?
Also that.
Bond dropped in through a well, dropped in by a helicopter. What possible reason does she even have to be here? Did she go to the Navy guys and be like, hey, put me in, coach?
And there's a couple Navy guys there as well, but how did they get there so quickly?
But like, you're the captain of the submarine, and this civilian with no combat experience who has no reason to be involved at all says, "Hey, I want to go kill this dude." Are you gonna clear her to scuba dive off of your submarine?
No. And that's the sort of thing that you can hand wave. And I'm sure we have hand waved sillier things when discussing these movies.
Oh, yeah.
But what bothers me from a pure movie construction standpoint is that it's never been established in the movie that she knows how to scuba dive or use a harpoon gun.
Yeah.
Whereas in Thunderball, they were really good about that. Bond meets her diving. She has a harpoon gun that she uses frequently. And in this, it's just like, oh, surprise! I also know how to do this.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Certainly, it's a thing that you can hand wave, but you have to do enough groundwork to make it not just total nonsense.
Yeah, yes, that's what this is total nonsense.
Even if it's at this point in the film, at the point where we're headed into the final confrontation, Bond and the Bond girl who wants revenge on the bad guy have been working together enough that he can vouch for the fact that she can hold herself in battle or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's typically not just completely out of nowhere.
Surprise. It's very, very strange. And then it just cuts to Domino in a pool.
Yep. Doing a backflip.
Yeah. Wearing a
tiger bathing suit.
Tiger bathing suit, yeah. Bond is hanging out in the hot tub, and they're gonna make kisses, and then they hear someone enter the garden, and Bond sneaks around and discovers that it is in fact, because he grabs the person and flings them into the pool, that it is in fact Nigel Small-Faucett.
Love the name Small-Faucett.
Yeah, who has been sent to plead on M's behalf, right,
for Bond's return to MI6, because Bond has retired and he's like, things are a mess without you. We need you to come back. The world could end. We are completely bereft without your presence. Ugh. To which Bond says, "Never again." And I think Domino responds, "Never say never." And he looks at the camera and winks.
We really didn't need yet another. Please, Sean Connery, you are such a good James Bond. Please come back and be a James Bond again. Especially as the outro to the movie.
Never.
And then, winks directly at the camera.
The end.
The end.
Mercifully.
Yeah, man. Like, I didn't.
Now 2 hours and 10 minutes of runtime.
Oh. There was a couple things I liked, and Connery himself was not bad. Like, Connery has a lot of innate charisma and did a fine job, but so much about this was not good.
Yeah. All right. So let's go through the power rankings.
Oh, God.
I'm going to set some ground rules on this one because it's a little weird.
I can't wait to hear what these are.
Okay, well, I mean, it won't be anything like out to lunch. I propose that we consider everything up to the stabbing to be the pre-title sequence.
That's fair, because otherwise there is no pre-title sequence.
And the song is obviously the song. Mm-hmm. And then the movie is the movie. So really, I only had one ground rule that I wanted to propose. But if we agree, then cool.
Yeah.
Where does this land on the pre-title sequence power ranking scale?
I mean, it's not great because, I can't give it the benefit of pretending that they stab Bond and then it goes to opening titles. I can only look at it as what it is, which is they stab him and he goes, and then we cut to the fact that it was all a training exercise.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's a fine sequence. It's honestly, it's made worse by the fact that the opening song is running over it.
Yep.
If it was played straight without the music in it, it would, maybe be better. And the fact that the opening titles are running over this sequence like a made-for-TV movie also doesn't do it any favors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not great.
Yeah. It's a good action scene. It's an okay action scene.
It is. I found it a little, I mentioned this when we were talking about it the first time. I found it a little silly that it's we shoot this guy and then we garrote this guy, and then we use a blowgun on this guy, and then we fling a frisbee into the jungle to distract this other guy, and then we use a zip line to get over to the. It's just Every single step was like a new thing.
Yeah, I think I know the ballpark for this one for me, which is going to be somewhere in the realm of Diamond's OHMSS.
I was looking at exactly those ones.
Do I like it less than OHMSS? Do I like it less than... See, now I'm looking at Diamond's and OHMSS, and I'm actually worried that those two are in the wrong order. I'm now kind of thinking that I actually like the opening of OHMSS better than the one in Diamonds, but the fight scene was really bad. And Diamonds is really dumb. The opening of Diamonds is really dumb.
But this is just so inconsequential and like tonally in contrast to a lot of the movie.
Yeah, this goes... It definitely goes above Dr. No.
I'll tell you what, I will make my call right now if this helps you at all, and I am in fact going to put this below OHMSS. It just did not grab me.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, that's where I was debating it too. So I will mirror your opinion and do the same.
What do you think of the song? Never say never again. Never say never again. And so forth.
It might be the worst. It might be just the bottom of the list. It might be worse than Dr. No. Which I realize we rated the mango tree as the theme from Dr. No rather than the James Bond theme from Dr. No, or for that matter, Three Blind Mice. Like, is this a better song than Look of Love, which is my is my second worst Bond theme?
I mean, I ranked Look of Love higher, and I know you did. I think Look of Love is definitely better than this.
I don't know. I agree with you. I think Look of Love is better than this as a song.
Like, lyrically, it's pretty dire, but so have been some other ones that we have ranked decently well.
Yeah.
But musically, this one just craters for me. It is... It's like peak. It's peak of its era. As soon as I was really trying to place it, and as soon as Kathleen was like, I think you call this genre adult contemporary, was when I was like, oh my God, you're so right. That's exactly what this is. And that's why I don't like it.
Yeah. I feel compelled to put it above Dr. No because the mango tree is what we rated. For Dr. No, but my willingness to put it above Dr. No is also pretty low. Because the opening title of Dr. No was a medley of that and Three Blind Mice and the original James Bond theme. Nope, it goes last. This is my least favorite so far.
Fair enough. I'm having exactly the same Dr. No debate that you did. And you know what? I'm happy to just say that this is the worst.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I still consider Dr. No to include the like dun 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 dun. Like the actual Bond theme is in there, even though it's mixed.
Right.
I cannot put this above that.
Fair.
All right, so now we come to where this film rates in terms of overall film power ranking. And I think there's an easy answer.
I was going to say, both of us have at our bottom three from most enjoyed to least enjoyed are Thunderball, Diamonds Are Forever, and Casino Royale 1967.
Yeah. Do we both agree that this is a worse version of Thunderball?
Yes.
So that by nature puts it in our third or second or first worst spots.
I predict that this is going to be both of us deciding if we think this is better or worse than Diamonds Are Forever. Because
you are correct.
Casino Royale 1967 is still, despite some continuity things and stuff not being explained amazingly in this movie, Casino Royale is still the much more incomprehensible mess of cinema.
Yeah.
The couple things that I liked in this movie and the couple things that were actually good, like Largo was not terrible. Connery was still very good at being Sean Connery. Fatima Blush was entertaining, at least. But there was actually a lot more stuff that I thoroughly enjoyed in Diamonds Are Forever, despite that movie being kind of a tacky disaster.
Yeah, I am with you 100% of the way.
Yeah.
This is worse than Diamonds.
Yeah. Easily. And what a shame to get Sean Connery back to be James Bond in 1983, and this is where we landed.
Yeah, and just totally waste it.
Yeah. What an utter bummer. I wish they'd gotten him. There was that rumor, again, apocryphal, that they wanted Connery to play the groundskeeper in Skyfall.
Oh, wow. That would have been great.
And yeah, and what a much better movie that would have been to have a cameo appearance in. But I think he's done with everything. He's getting on a bit now.
I think he just turned 90.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah.
Can you imagine the web of headcanons that would spin from Sean Connery showing up as James Bond's groundskeeper in Skyfall?
Oh boy, that would have been very entertaining to see. Just like, Matt Griffiths, could you put in the shot? You know, the one from Always Sunny. You know, with the web of strings. That's the one. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us for that one, everybody at home. Next episode, we're back to the EON Productions in, I can't make any guarantees, but what will probably be at least a better constructed movie.
That's a tall order, Graham.
With 1983's Octopussy, which I still can't believe is the name that they put on posters
and marquees. That name showed up in lights.
I still can't believe that. But anyway, 1983's Octopussy with Roger Moore and Maud Adams returning to the franchise. And honestly, really looking forward to it. We talked about doing Never Say Never Again as a break from Roger Moore, and I want to go back.
How naive you were.
Yeah. So, until then, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining me.
Always.
And shout outs to Featherweight for the wonderful art and Matt Griffiths for doing the video version editing on this. And of course, Heather for doing podcast admin, and all of you, because this and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon, patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Thanks ever so much for your ongoing support. Looking forward to next time. This podcast will return.